It's a wonderful, really wonderful, a terrific Tuesday. Good morning to you. Good morning to your Grenada, Carrick, Petey, Martinique, the rest of the Eastern Caribbean, to you wherever you are. It's Tuesday morning. It is the 26th day of the month of October. And who would have possibly imagined we would be having a conversation about this late in October so quickly? But it is what it is. I'm happy that you're here and you're up and about for another great day, another day of productivity, another day on the grind. I hope you had yourself a really good night's rest and you are ready and you're set to do this. It is another great day and I'm happy that you're here, and we want to say thanks for being part of the classic family in the morning time. Those of you wherever you are, those of you here at home, across the region, and in other parts of the diaspora. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. It is the 26th day of the month of October. It is just about 24 minutes onto the hour of 7 o'clock. And for 7 o'clock workers, I know that you're up and about and you are getting there in the morning time. We're going to kickstart things this morning as we're going to look and consider the word for the day. What is the word for the day? And the word for the day, well, first we'll start with your word for the day. And today we look at the word forgiveness. What is forgiveness? And forgiveness, as it is, forgiveness is to cease to feel resentment against an offender. It requires you to pardon or forgive one's enemy, to give up resentment off or a claim to requital. The word for the day is forgiveness, and certainly you probably might be wondering, why are we talking about forgiveness today? Forgiveness is spelled Forgiveness. 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 The word for the day, forgiveness, as defined by the Merriam Dictionary. And forgiveness is to cease to feel resentment, that bad feeling, the vibes that you get after someone has done you something wrong. When you forgive them, that's a process, and it's a process of healing that allows you to forgive an insult, to grant relief for payment, or to forgive a debt. And that's the intransitive verb. But certainly today we look at the word forgiveness, and today we're going to look a little bit closer into it, and hoping that by the end of the day you get an appreciation of what it really and truly means to forgive. So the word for today is forgiveness. A thought for the day: forgive others not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. And I want you to personalize it this morning, that we're going to forgive others not because they deserve it, but because I, Joseph, personalize it this morning. Take ownership of it, because I deserve peace. So you understand that forgiveness goes way beyond just what you doing for the individual, but certainly it puts you in a better place as well. So you forgive others not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve to be at peace. I know it seems sort of far-fetched because you're thinking they have done me wrong, but later on in the day we're going to get close to that conversation. And my guest this morning, when I rejoin you on television, it's going to be Bishop Christopher Baker, and today we'll be talking about forgiveness, what it is, how does it work. Is forgiveness a one-off exercise? Is it a process? Can I really and truly forgive? Do I forgive and remember? Do I forgive and forget? What are the options? And that conversation is going to come up later on in the morning. But in the meantime, we're getting ready to send you back to television. Those of you that's on television, we're getting ready to send you back to Studio Control, where you are going to get a recap of some of the top stories from last week. For those of you that is here on radio, your newscast comes up in just a bit, and so certainly that is the plan for the day. Give you an appreciation as to exactly what's happening. I hope that you're up and about. In case you're wondering if there is any dashboard, well, it was a quiet weekend. I haven't seen, I think the last day, yes, the team was actually out on Saturday. Yeah, what's wrong with me? I missed that. Yeah, I was thinking working here yesterday. No, the team was actually out on Saturday. So we definitely miss that for you. But indeed, it's a really, really great day for the 7 o'clock workers. You definitely should be on your way already and getting up and about. If not, depending on how close you are, but certainly you must be on your way to get there and to get on time. 17 minutes on to the hour. The morning edition comes up next on Classic Radio, and those of you on television, we send you back to studio control, and they will rejoin you some more time at the top of the hour, about 15 minutes past.
Review commences on the sister isle of Carriacou, where foreign nationals were detained for armed robbery at the Grenada Cooperative Bank last Monday. Chrislina John has the details of this brazen crime, which comes about 2 years after a similar robbery.
Workers at one of the leading financial institutions on the sister isle were the target of gunmen today. GBN received reports of a robbery at the Grenada Cooperative Bank, Carriacou, by masked men. There are no reports of injuries. Corporal Cordina Douglas McLean at the Community Relations Department of the RGPF confirmed to GBN that the incident did occur, however, were not willing to divulge further information on the incident as investigations are ongoing.
This time I can only confirm the incident. I'm not in a position to speak to the details surrounding this occurrence, this alleged occurrence, but what we can do is confirm that that had happened.
Our news desk understands shots were fired as the men attempted to make their getaway from the island by boat. 2 years ago, on October 11th, thieves got away with an undisclosed sum of money during an armed robbery at the Grenada Union of Teachers Credit Union branch in Carriacou. 2 men were arrested on the island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in connection with the robbery. However, the latest bit of information on this matter is that Grenada was seeking the extradition of 2 St. Vincent and the Grenadines nationals accused of staging the robbery at the Grenada Union of Teachers Credit Union in Carriacou. When asked about this matter, Corporal Douglas McLean says they are not in a position to provide information on the outcome in this matter. Investigations are ongoing. Chrislina John, GBN News.
Grenada Cooperative Bank Limited announced that it is a member of a consortium of leading indigenous banks in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, ECCU, that has entered into a definitive agreement to acquire the branches and the banking operations of CIBC First Caribbean in Grenada and other Caribbean nations. Managing Director of Coop Bank, Richard Duncan, in making the announcement stated, quote, "The acquisition by Coop Bank represents a significant development in the evolution of the banking system of Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique," unquote. Let's get more details from Jared Joseph.
The Grenada Cooperative Bank has evolved from having Barclays Bank, which is now CIBC First Caribbean, as its bankers, to having the capacity to acquire that financial institution. Managing Director of the Grenada Cooperative Bank, Richard Duncan, says being able to compete with other acquirers and achieve success speaks volumes, notwithstanding its historic and strategic significance.
It means that much more of the country's deposits are under the management and control of nationals of Grenada. It means that the profits arising from that acquisition stays in Grenada in the hands of Grenadian shareholders of the bank.
Mr. Duncan says during the process of acquisition and even after, Grenada Cooperative Bank will ensure that workers' interests is protected.
Employees of FCIB who, when the opportunity arises, up to seek employment at the bank and when accepted will enjoy such similar accommodation, facilities and benefits. As a consequence of that, we do not see any reasons for concern or industrial unease either at FCIB or at GCBL.
Managing Director Designate Larry Lawrence impresses that the bank now has to file an application to the ECCB, who is the regulator, for approval.
We're comfortable that the Grenada Cooperative Bank has the capacity, the ability to take on the transaction, take on the new levels of business. You know, we have resources in terms of capital adequacy. We have resources in terms of human resource capital. So this is what the ECCB will opine on upon our application as part of this process.
Mr. Lawrence notes that Coop Bank remains open to infusing external talent and influence. The same will apply to employees of CIBC First Caribbean.
There is always areas for improvement, but rest assured, the capabilities of the electronic banking channels of the Grenada Cooperative Bank is impressive, and we do believe verily that customers of FCIB will enjoy enhanced electronic banking services as part of the transition over to Coop Bank.
The Grenada Cooperative Bank's management says they do not expect any resistance to the acquisition on a national level. I am Gerard Joseph for GBN News.
Meanwhile, the Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union is hoping to avoid a repeat of the previous instances regarding the acquisition of financial institutions and ongoing industrial disputes. Earlier this year, workers during the RBTT ACB Bank buyout protested for 5 straight weeks before the issue was resolved.
GTAO President St. Andre Lewis says the union will engage the relevant authorities to ensure the necessary regulatory approval is not given until outstanding issues are addressed within CIBC First Caribbean.
In the case of First Caribbean, we have a ruling from the Labour Commissioner on the question of overtime payment, where the bank illegally scheduled workers to work outside of the normal working period according to the Labour Code, and has not paid them, and is trying to hide behind something not to pay them. But we will not allow that to happen. There is a question of their standing and collective negotiations, and then there is the aspect of where the bank is trying to come up with some unimaginable way to pay workers their severance pay.
Senator Lewis pointed to an even more recent unresolved issue whereby 2 workers were sent home and were paid incorrectly.
And therefore, it is important for Coop Bank not to finalize any arrangement with First Caribbean because they do not want to inherit a problem like ACB inherited.
The Grenada Cooperative Bank has been earmarked as a member of the consortium of leading indigenous banks in the ECCU to acquire the Grenadian branch and banking operations of CIBC First Caribbean. The union leader says, sadly, they have become experts on such issues, which is a direct indication of unemployment.
You no longer have Scotia, and pretty soon you would no longer have First Caribbean, and you no longer have RBTT. So in a way, as the investors and these shareholders in the banks that are doing the purchases, as their portfolios increase, yes, because they now control the market, it is not good for the employment status in the country.
He says it is unfortunate that the union learned of the buyover on the same day as the announcement, and they now await the engagement on the outstanding issues. According to a release from Coop Bank, it is committed to recruiting Grenadian staff of CIBC First Caribbean as required to maintain and even improve the level and quality of service that CIBC First Caribbean customers are accustomed to. I am Gerard Joseph for GBN News.
October is a month set aside to celebrate the lives of senior citizens. However, the advanced in age shamefully continue to be the targets of predators. Chrislina John has another heartbreaking story of a senior citizen who was attacked by someone he considers a son.
And I have, in these 200 God give me, to do anything, act fool to any man. Look how I go look at them. These 3 mash up in the right hand, only 2 in the right hand are working. Look at them. These 5 already gone, and another found it.
That was 66-year-old Aidan Levine of Old Westerhall, St. David. Mr. Levine alleged that he was attacked Monday by his nephew, whom he says he cared for since he was a baby. Now he said not only is he left humiliated, but fearful. Monday's incident did not only affect the elderly man, but also traumatized two of his young children, who were at the time in Mr. Levine's care. Mr. Levine says the row was over a few passion fruits he took from the property belonging to the family. He said the young man made demands for the fruit, which Mr. Levine himself refused to give. The shaken man spoke of his ordeal to GBN after this incident, hoping to get some peace of mind.
When he pushed me, I tumbled down. And when I tumbled down, I get up and I come back right here. And I say, Richard, I said, what are you doing? Put me behind my head here. And he pulled me over. So when he pulled me over now, all the weight of my body now end up lying on the door. So then now I come like a seesaw. Pull me down. I tried to pull me all by my head. The cutlass was in the corner here. Look at this tough bucket. Like when I start to get the pressure, when I ball out, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. You say you're balling. I thought you're coward.
The elderly man, whose hands are somewhat paralyzed, is thankful for his 8-year-old grandson's quick thinking that he believed saved his life.
Age kill him up. And if he didn't have the tablets and if he didn't have the qualification, as much as young, the sense to know how to manipulate the tablets in order to get different games and different things that you want off it, that would have go scot-free, because nobody would not have known what Richard Levine do to me, the uncle, without giving him a cause.
The police were contacted, and as he says, he's allowing the law to take its course. However, he says he's disappointed that an arrest is not made to date.
And the police came, and after explaining the first outing, the police bringing a doctor paper to me, which I carried to the doctor. Yesterday, I waiting for compensation from the law.
From late September into October, it was brought to the attention of the GBN 3 incidences of assaults on elderly citizens. This latest incident brings the number of attacks to 4 that GBN has reported on in the past 3 weeks. Police continue their investigations into these matters to bring the perpetrators to justice. Christina John, GBN News.
Moving on now to COVID-19 regulations. This past week, several adjustments and changes were made to the COVID-19 regulations. The modifications surrounded the mandatory vaccination requirement for the dropping off of children at daycares, among others. We get more in this report.
The change to that is that it is no longer required, and all of these facilities would make special arrangements to ensure that these persons do not enter the facility and that there is care and protection in the manner in which students or children are dropped off and picked up.
The outcry against mandatory vaccination of individuals who are dropping off or picking up children at daycares has seemingly been heard. Dive shops, drive-in schools can be reopened, and call centers with specific mandates for employers and employees to present vaccination status to operate are some of the other changes in the new regulations. Education Minister Emily Pierre notes that the curfew period and travel restrictions to Carriacou remains as is, with Cabinet to consider a review once the COVID situation continues to improve.
Social gatherings and weddings are still prohibited. Individuals can still obtain marriage licenses. Wedding is a social concept, and that is what is prohibited, not marriages.
On the issue of the reopening of churches, Minister Pierre, who is also responsible for religious affairs, says a consensus between the umbrella bodies for the various churches and government has always been sought.
There has never been an occasion from the start of COVID-19 to this point where the government on its own has taken any decision as it relates to how churches function during the pandemic.
Therefore, upon receiving further recommendations from the church bodies, the Religious Affairs Minister says Cabinet has given its approval.
That is, that our churches will reopen with immediate effect, with their full numbers as far as 6 feet physical distancing allows.
The grouping of churches had previously suggested 2 weeks of observation while maintaining a 20-member congregation. I am Gerard Joseph for GBN News.
While vaccination is not mandatory in Grenada, the government is encouraging teachers and students 12 years and over to take the jab. This comes as Education Minister Emlyn Pear announced proposed timelines for the resumption of schools in a phased approach. Gerard Joseph has the details.
A test period of 2 weeks from November 1st to the 12th has been scheduled for the return to physical classrooms for some students. Education Minister Emlyn Pear says this shall be counted as phase 1 and priority will be given to students who have not been engaged in remote learning as well as students preparing for exit exams. Minister Pear says such a decision was taken after meeting with the representative groups within the education sector and identifying academic, social and behavioral concerns associated with remote learning.
Secondary schools on Mondays only, forms 1 and 2. Tuesdays only, forms 3 and 4, and this is only for the students who are disconnected from classes. Primary schools, Mondays only for KG to grade 2, and Tuesdays grades 3 to 5. 4+ students, Wednesdays to Fridays.
The minister hints at the overall decline in pass rates at CAPE, CSEC and CPEA in mathematics and English A as other critical factors leading to the resumption of in-class learning. Teacher and student engagement disparities were also highlighted as major factors.
Primary level, grade 6 only from Wednesdays to Fridays, and secondary school level, form 5s only from Wednesdays to Friday.
According to the Education Minister, special needs students and students with underlying conditions are encouraged to remain home, while parents still fearful of physical classes can use the 2 weeks to adapt.
Only students disconnected remotely, T.A. Marichaud Community College, Mondays and Tuesdays, year 1 only, and Wednesdays to Friday, year 2s only.
Private schools reopening, Minister Pear notes, will be done on a case-by-case basis after an electronic application is filed. I am Gerard Joseph for GBN News.
Still ahead, GEC President cautions Prime Minister on any attempts to mandate teachers to take the COVID-19 vaccine. We'll look at that after this short message.
Get Rubigas. Get cooking. Rubigas, clean, safe, and reliable LPG is the perfect solution for your commercial and everyday needs. For cooking at home or barbecuing, choose Rubigas LPG cylinders. Available in a variety of sizes from 20 to 100-pound cylinders. Rubigas LPG, clean, safe, reliable. Are you cooking with Rubigas? Get Rubis, get going.
President of the Grenada Union of Teachers, Jude Bartholomew, wants Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell to tread carefully on the issue of mandatory vaccination. This comes as government this week charts the way forward towards the reopening of schools throughout the country.
President of the Grenada Union of Teachers, Jude Bartholomew, is warning government against any possible draconian measures to force its members to take the COVID-19 vaccines.
I think he should tread cautiously and be wise. Yes, he might be pressured. We don't know from where. Probably the government of Grenada. We don't know if it's locally, regionally, and internationally. And he have a lot of things to deal with. But let wisdom prevail. And don't go down that road of forcing vaccination upon teachers and of other workers of this country. Convince them, educate them, and let them make a matter of choice.
Government is presently discussing the reopening of schools as COVID cases continue to diminish. However, government made it clear that vaccination is seen as one of the possible measures to be considered towards the resumption of schools. In a recent message to Grenada, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell spoke about the important role of vaccination in the reopening of schools.
The vaccination rate, unfortunately, among teachers and other personnel in the education sector is abysmal. The uptake of Pfizer vaccine, which is administered to children for 12 and above, is also low at this point. Against this backdrop, it is difficult for government to announce at this time the reopening of schools.
Bartholomew is appealing to the Prime Minister to step with caution on the issue of vaccination. In August, the GOT stated its stance on COVID-19 and mandatory vaccination.
We encourage teachers to educate themselves about the COVID-19 vaccine and to follow the Ministry of Health COVID-19 protocols, and that vaccination is a matter of choice, that teachers own free will. Let me just go forward. We made it clear that we are not against vaccination, but it must be a matter of choice. It may be a matter of choice. All right? What the Grenada Union of Teachers is totally against is mandatory vaccination.
Bartholomew says he wouldn't like the history of Prime Minister Mitchell as a long-standing politician to end with a bitter taste.
Prime Minister of Grenada and the government of Grenada, they didn't mandate in terms of elections. They didn't mandate in terms of to force people to vote for them. They didn't mandate in terms of they have 15 seats. And what did they do? They convinced the citizens of Grenada, this country, to vote for them. So if you could convince people to vote for you and you got 15 seats, what is in you now, directly now, that you can convince the nation, educate and convince your people?
Bartholomew says teachers are most happy in the classrooms, but believes that looking at a phased approach towards January of 2022 may be the safest at this time for the resumption of face-to-face teaching and learning. Cherry Blackman Stephen, GBN News.
Meanwhile, Labour Commissioner Cyrus Griffith is expected to give a clear directive on Grenada's first major challenge to mandatory COVID-19 vaccine by an employer in 2 weeks. The opposition parties are St. George's University and protesting workers at the university, represented by the Technical Allied Workers Union.
Labour Commissioner Cyrus Griffith on Wednesday, following a conciliation meeting in an attempt to resolve the dispute between GTAU and SGU involving the university's insistence on mandatory vaccination, has indicated that he will make recommendations in 2 weeks. In a statement issued by TAU on Thursday, the union said the SGU team, led by local corporate lawyer Deacon Mitchell, served notice that if the protesting workers do not meet the demand by SGU to inform of the decision to be vaccinated or not vaccinated by tomorrow, Friday, their services will be terminated by January 2022. The union team, led by President General Andre Lewis, reiterated its position that there must be an exemption for breastfeeding mothers, religious beliefs, and severance payment consistent with the Union Agreement and Employment Act for workers who have stated they have no interest in being vaccinated. TAU said the union pointed out in the meeting that it is improper to ask the workers to make a decision by Friday without knowing the decision of the Labour Commissioner, which will not come before the end of this month. The union statement states that the dispute continues to escalate as the affected workers have received no pay since June 2021, while SGUs claim that workers who refuse to be vaccinated have abandoned their jobs and as a result are not entitled to compensation for their years of service. GBN sought a response from SGU and was told that the outcome of the meeting must first be reviewed before a response can be given to the media. Cherry and Blackman Stephen, GBN News.
A visionary leader, dedicated, humble, and generous were just some of the words used to describe cultural icon the late Peter Bain, BEM. Residents of the Big Parish especially and surrounding parishes turned out in droves to witness and pay tribute to a legend who has greatly impacted culture, sports, and business in Grenada.
His sister, Yolam Bain Horsford, in delivering the eulogy, attributed her brother Peter Bain's love for carnival and pageantry evolved from his youthful days with his 12 siblings and friends. This as dozens line the boundary of the Granborough Cemetery, while close family, friends and band members said goodbye to an icon. In 1993, Bain Horsford noted was the birth of Rainbow City Mass Promoters, which became many years of selfless contributions to Grenada's culture, especially in the parish of St. Andrew.
He was instrumental in having the first ever St. Andrew's Carnival Development Office built at the quarry on Chapel Road in Grenville. As a result, the Kiddies Carnival show was revived. The Shakespeare Mass from the sister Isle of Carriacou and the Moko Jumbies from Trinidad were brought in to enhance the carnival product.
Executive member of the Maurice Bishop and October Martyrs Foundation, Dr. Terence Marisho, recalled the many selfless contributions the late Peter Bain made to recognizing October 19th, even up to his death. Dr. Marisho spoke to the irony of his burial being on the day before October 19th.
Even on his sick bed, he was telling his beloved wife, Nola, that even if it was just a wreath, she had to lay on the wall because he recognized the restrictions in these COVID times, that she should do it and go and pay tribute as we have done all along. Such was the character and the profound nature of this outstanding individual who has no concern about others than his own self. And so we remember and pay tribute today to his father, Maurice Bain, Maurice Bishop, and all of those who lost their lives on October the 19th.
The tribute included the impact Rainbow City Mass Promoters via its band leader have had on Carnival in Grenville, as well as on the sister Isle of Carriacou and within the Grenada Mass Band Association.
I've heard up there the streets are made of gold, and when you get there, there's a hand to hold. I believe when your days out here are through, there's a place out there for people like you.
CEO of the Spice Mass Corporation, Kelvin Jacob, in paying tribute to the cultural icon, highlighted Peter Bain's last cooperation with the SMC.
2 weeks before he became ill, he had a conversation with us about how we can work together to get Spice Mass back in 2022.
He was not only a man of culture but of sports during his days at the St. Andrews Anglican Secondary School.
In my opinion, Peter Watt was one of the best athletes that passed through SAS. We both represented SAS at Intercol every year of the 5 years we were at the institution. In the first 3 years, I ran all sprints and then later middle distance, while Peter did just about all field events.
Peter Bain's burial was indeed a somber day for the residents of Granborough and St. Andrew, as many pledged to ensure his legacy lives on. I am Gerard Joseph for GBN News.
Feed babies well after an emergency or disaster. Infants 6 months and older need clean, safe, complementary foods along with breast milk to meet their nutrient needs. Continue to breastfeed while gradually introducing foods one at a time from various food groups. A message from the Grenada Food and Nutrition Council in collaboration with the Ministry of Health with support from the Pan American Health Organization.
Introducing Color by Sissons. 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 Color by Sissons.
A whole new level of convenience and comfort awaits you when you shop at Rise and Shine Supermarket and Hardware Supplies, Griffin Lane, Grenville. Convenient, because we are open Sunday to Sunday. We're even at your service on public holidays. Comfort, because we are easily accessible to the physically challenged. Free Wi-Fi is available while you shop, and bags come at no charge. Everyday low prices and excellent customer care. Adequate parking available. We supply everything you can possibly think of. Family and home supplies, fresh meat, vegetables, and personal care products. All brands of cooking gas at affordable prices. You can send in your order, have it pulled, or pick up express.
Once upon a time, we shopped at Wonderland, then Neverland. But we're all grown up now and no longer believe in fairy tales. So now we just shop at Shoes R Us. At Shoes R Us, we stock the latest in shoes, tops, and jeans for the fashion-conscious lady. We also carry colognes and much, much more. And for the modern trendy male, we have the latest brand-name shoes and sneakers, Converse, Reebok, Nike, K-Swiss, Puma, and much more. So check us out at our two convenient locations, Melville Street in St. George and Ben Jones Street in Granville. At Shoes R Us, we say, come shop with us.
Can you hear the voice of the people? Can you hear how some of them cry? Tell me why the world is so evil and so much are innocent have to die. Oh Lord, I cannot make it. Plus some of us cannot take it. All the politicians fake it, and all of them doing the same thing. So everybody free up. I'm begging you not to give up. Put your hand in the air. No, it's not the time to give up. We drinking water and they drinking syrup. Hennessy and the rum. All we need is a change. We looking for a change. It can be a better place. Yes, we can rearrange it. We can all change this. Hear me now. I hear the cries of the ghetto, and hear the voice of them echo. I don't know why we should live like that. Cause Father God, it just burned my heart. Why people get so bitter? They don't care about each other. Playing a blame game, celebrating the next man fall. Innocent people getting hurt. We forget what life is worth. Lift your head up to the sky, cause I know you hear the cry. I hear the cries of the ghetto, and hear the voice of them echo. I don't know why we should live like that. Oh Lord, I cannot make it. Plus some of us cannot take it. All the politicians fake it, and all of them doing the same thing. So everybody free up. I'm begging you not to give up. Put your hand in the air. No, it's not the time to give up. We drinking water and they drinking syrup. Hennessy and the rum. Who feels it knows it. Whoa. Who feels it knows it. Whoa. I hear the cries of the ghetto, and hear the voice of them echo.
land, it will end up in the ocean. And for every fish that chokes on our waste, someone's livelihood dies too. Some say, please stop marine pollution.
So many islands, familiar connections, sharing resources, one economy. More than just islands, a civilization of history and culture and shared destiny. Why wouldn't we have one Caribbean sea? We all belong.
Timeless classical music from the man Larry Graham in the morning time, 1 in a million. It doesn't matter which version of the song that you hear, it certainly has that spine bending effect on you. 24 minutes gone past the hour in the morning time, and so we do apologize for that delayed start of rejoining you on television, but all things being equal and what they are, we are here. As promised, I did say intimate to you that this morning we're talking about forgiveness. And certainly, it's a conversation that is timely, it is relevant. Yesterday was the observance of Day of Thanksgiving, and we're not going to. And while for many, they would ask, "What are we giving God thanks for?" And that's a conversation that we can literally have any time of our life. What are we giving God thanks for? But we probably have to ask ourselves: have you ever been hurt? Are there things in your life that have you gone through dark times? And I know the events of 38 years ago. It was a dark period in our life. And even outside of that, as human beings, as we go through periods where we are hurt in our lives and we find it difficult to move on. And some say, I forgive, but I can't forget. Others will say, I can never forgive you. And the question is, forgiveness. What is forgiveness all about? Is it possible that if you're hurt, that you can turn the tides, you could turn the other cheek and move on with your life? If it's possible, how is it done? What should be done, if at all it is possible? And to answer those questions and more for me is no other than Bishop Christopher Baker. Good morning, Bishop. How are you?
Joseph, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. I'm wonderful. I'm happy that you up. Are you normally an early riser, or did I force you this morning?
Yes, I'm a morning person.
You are a morning person. Wonderful, Bishop. Forgiveness, and I know that for most individuals, I've heard it is not one of the cutest topics to discuss, because it is one that when you start being discussed, emotions gets welled up within individuals, and it takes them down a path very often that they do not want to. But most of us, we agree that forgiveness, it is possible, and at some point in time in our lives, we have to deal with the reality of having to forgive somebody. But if I were to ask you point blank, Bishop, what is forgiveness? What would you say?
Joseph, I will say to you, is to give up resentment or stop wanting to punish someone for an offense or fault. It really speaks of pardoning that particular individual. And I can even add a little more to that and say, is to relent in being angry or in wishing to exact punishment for an offense or fault that was committed.
So it means in order for you to forgive, somebody would have had to have wronged you one way or the other.
Yes.
Do I forgive? The act of forgiving, the release that do I forgive you, Bishop, because you have hurt me intentionally? Do I forgive you only if it's done accidentally? I can ignore it. At what point in time should I exercise forgiveness, or should I do it at all?
Very, very interesting question, Joseph. And let me take that answer, pulling it out from the scriptures. And I want to go to a very well-known portion of scripture, the Lord's Prayer. I suspect most of us, all of us who are believers and Christians, will know that prayer. And in that prayer, notice very carefully that Jesus connected forgiveness both to heaven and earth. So in that prayer, Jesus said that we should pray that our Father in heaven will forgive us as we forgive our fellow human beings. He's telling us that forgiveness is extremely crucial, extremely important, and it is not conditional. So many people think that forgiveness is conditional. In the context of Scripture, forgiveness is not conditional.
Bishop, I'm having a difficult time digesting this one.
Mm-hmm.
It is not conditional. So, if I don't forgive, if you don't forgive, what happens?
Okay, let me again put it in a little more context. Yes? One of the things that we have to understand about the importance of forgiveness is that forgiveness is a relational issue. It has to do with relationship. And it has to do with a relationship between man and God, and it has to do with relationship between man and man, fellow human beings. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
As I go back to Jesus' prayer, Jesus made mention that we should ask God for forgiveness, and we should always ask God for forgiveness from a heart that is willing to forgive others. In other words, saying to us that there is a recognition, we must recognize in our prayer that we have failed and wronged God. We have fallen short of God's requirement. But we must also recognize in our prayer to our Heavenly Father that fellow human beings will fall short of our requirements. They will wrong us, and we must be willing to forgive. As I said, forgiveness is not conditional. It is something that must be given, whether it was done deliberately or by accident. We must release one another. Other than that, we cannot maintain human relationship.
Wow. And I'm getting the sense that the deeper we get into this conversation, we would realize that the ability to forgive certainly would hinge on the sort of life that the sort of human life that we live. It may then answer the question as to whether we make heaven or hell and what happens to us at the end of the day. But you have to forgive me now, Bishop, because of course I really can't help myself with this one. For those of you that's probably following the ICC World Cup, West Indies versus South Africa. West Indies are currently at 133 for 6, and the 18th, just about halfway through the 18th over. So certainly I forgive them for their paltry performance, that lame performance they gave us in game number 1. They're making up for this. I've done my forgiving to the West Indies, and let's hope we move on. Bishop, so understanding that forgiveness is not conditional. The act of forgiveness, is it a one-off event that I say I forgive you, Bishop, and that's it? Or is it a process? How long does it take for one to forgive?
Great question, Joseph. You know, Jesus made mention, I think it is in the book of Luke, chapter 17 and verse 4, where he says that if our brother sin against us 7 times in a day, and he returned to us and asked for forgiveness, we ought to forgive him. Peter made an interesting statement when Jesus spoke to his apostles about forgiveness. Peter asked Jesus, how often should I forgive my brother? Should I forgive him 7 times 7? And when Peter made that statement, you must understand it in the context that Peter was being very, very generous to say 7 times 7. Because the teaching of the Jews, the rabbis, taught that you only forgave somebody for 3 times. Once, twice, 3 times. And after that, you're out. So Peter was being generous by asking. And Jesus said to him, very, very clear, I do not say to you 7, but 70 times. In essence, Jesus was really saying to you, don't put a tab on it. Whenever forgiveness is needed, necessary, you should be willing to do it.
While that be as it is, and we know the scripture, we'll never argue with the scriptures. Certainly, a bishop is not as open and close case as it is. It's not as easy as saying, okay, I forgive you, I walk away, and we go have dinner, we go finish watch cricket, and move on with our lives as though nothing has happened. How do we really and truly, though, as part of forgiveness, how do you cope, how do you manage with the pain and the anger that one would feel as a result of that, of what would have the transgression that would have committed against them?
We as human beings are prone to be hurt because our fellow brothers and sisters transgress against us. And because we are fallen human beings, when we are hurt, we become punitive. We want revenge. We want to get back at that person. We want to hurt that person in return. And it is very difficult for us to want to release that person, to say, I'm not going to act on what you've done to me. It's very difficult for us to do that. But it is necessary for us to do that. Now, some people can forgive very easily. Again, I think it's also a heart condition, where some people can release others very easily. Some people take a very long time in able to do that. But it is something that is necessary. As I said, it's a relational issue. If we're going to mend relationship, see, that is what is crucial here. Forgiveness is about mending relationship. If we're going to mend relationship, then it is important for us to release one another.
Some people would argue that the act of forgiveness is predicated on whether you are, quote unquote, a Christian. You say, if I'm a Christian, oh, you must forgive, Joe, you must forgive. Don't forget, Bishop Baker, you're a Christian. But if, quote unquote, you live like the beast that sometimes some individuals profess they act, is there any room for forgiveness in their lives?
If they want to maintain and perpetuate the relationship that has caused them pain, every human being needs to be able to release others, to forgive others. And in a real sense, forgiving others is not so much about the other person as about you see, because unforgiveness affects us internally. It leaves us bitter. It is even recognized that we can become sick. We can, find ourselves with all kind of ailments because there's bitterness. You see, bitterness in the human heart affects the human body, and sometimes it comes out in different ways. One of the ways in which it comes out is in violence, is in sickness. Many other things come out from a heart that is unforgiving.
Bishop, we're touching on a lot of issues here. Violence, sickness. We're keeping our eyes on the clock. 23 minutes on to the hour of 8 o'clock. We take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back. What is forgiveness? Is it possible that we can forgive? And Bishop, before the break, we were highlighting the fact that we've intimated quite early that forgiveness is not just about the individual, the person who committed the transgression, but the one, in fact, who was hurt. It is more about you than the other individual. You talk about unforgiveness can have some really harrowing effects on us, health-wise, emotionally, physically. Continue along that line for me.
Yeah, because, again, I could take it a little further. Because, see, we always have to understand forgiveness in a relational context. And let me back up a little bit and say that God, who created all things, is a God of forgiveness. Yes? And the reason why God is a God of forgiveness is because he desired relationship with human beings. We human beings fall short of, and I'm talking in a Christian context, fall short of God's righteousness. And hear what God says. If we confess our sins, He is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. And the reason why He's forgiving us is because He wants to maintain relationship with us. Now, so there can be harmony between earth and heaven. There can be harmony between man and God. It's the same responsibility we have for our fellow human beings. When we forgive each other, we can have harmony between us as individuals We can have harmony between us as family. We can have harmony between us as community and harmony on a national level. See? So unforgiveness affects a lot of other things that sometimes we do not recognize and pay attention to, or even are aware that our unforgiveness affects those things.
It's interesting that you're taking this to quite a different level. So now you're taking unforgiveness, from the confines of the heart to the home, to the church, to the village, to the society, and you're saying unforgiveness, depending on where and how it is committed, doesn't just harm an individual, it harms the family. Generations down the line, unforgiveness, if left untreated as it is, not dealt with, it affects our way of life, who we are as individuals, our families. Literally, it could mean that 38 years on, as we look at the revolution, that there are persons, because of unforgiveness, you can see it being manifested even in the way that we treat each other, or even the way we don't treat each other.
And that is quite true. One of the other facets of forgiveness is that there are times, I believe, that there can be unilateral forgiveness. Okay, Joseph, you've done me something wrong. Knowing you, understanding the context from which you come in, I said, listen, I'm not going to hold this against you. Okay? And we never have any issues. However, the scripture does indicate also that it is important for the person who have done the wrong to acknowledge their error and ask for forgiveness.
Okay.
That is also very important.
What if they don't, Bishop?
Now, if they don't ask for forgiveness, then you have to release them unilaterally.
Okay.
Because by releasing them, you are releasing yourself.
And sometimes the act of forgiveness, it takes the person that's being transgressed against, it takes them to be the bigger man, as they say. Because the Bible says, if you are the altar, and I remember that Janelle McDonald, and I'm calling Janelle's name here, I could do that. And I remember that my co-worker has ought against me. That, what does the Bible say? Leave your gift at the altar.
That's right. And go and talk to them. You see, so notice that the scripture puts responsibility upon the offender, but it also puts responsibility upon the offender. You see? So the scripture says that if your brother sin against you and he come to you and asks for forgiveness, now that's a big step, because if he comes to you to ask for forgiveness, he's recognizing that he has wronged you. He's acknowledging his error. Yes? And when people acknowledge their error and recognize that they're wrong, our response should be forgiveness. However, people may wrong you and hurt you, and you feel very angry about it. But they don't know, because we can often hurt others and not even know that we've hurt.
Right.
And so it is necessary for us to bring that hurt to them, to inform them. Listen, you said this, you did this, and it was very painful to me. I feel very hurt about it. And then the onus is on that person now to acknowledge and say, listen, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. I never thought you took it in that way. Sorry, would you forgive me?
There are times, Bishop, that, and you would hear a person feels offended, and the person would say, well, it was not my intention. I didn't, all I said was that. And we hear it, it's part of human interaction. And you say, well, I don't know why Bishop reacted that. All I said with Bishop, well, is that South Africa is going to beat West Indies. And he explodes. Is it possible that people, that they can react to situations that they relate as painful, not necessarily based on who is doing it, but the person that is creating that seeming offense, they are in fact the trigger for something maybe that they were dealing with from years past gone by? So let's assume your brother hurt me, but I don't see your brother. But whenever I see Christopher Baker, I remember that he did this to me 10 years ago. It may possibly mean, in order to forgive you for what the transgression now, I may have to do some serious soul searching of things that has happened in my life, maybe even as in my childhood. And the healing may have to start back there.
That is also true. Where people could have had hurts and wounds that was never healed because they never released it. There was no forgiveness. And those hurts and those wounds are triggers. The trigger. So, in my honesty, I may say something to you very genuinely, but I am not. I don't have the knowledge that I'm hitting a trigger.
Right.
And bullets start flying at me, and I am wondering, well, what did I do? But really, it is because that person is still carrying a hurt that not really. I am the one who caused it, but I'm getting the repercussion of that hurt. And again, you see how unforgiveness can affect us, in a continuous process.
It is possible that there are people, individuals, and some people do not even understand that, and it probably takes a bit of emotional intelligence, and that is in a different conversation. And that is why it's important, Bishop, that we are quite conscious of how we interact with each other. We say in local parlance, you can't drink bush for other people's fever. We have to learn to deal with individuals on who they are. I have to learn that I'm going to deal with Bishop Baker as Bishop Baker, but his wife, she's a different individual. And we have to learn to accept that. Ultimately, we say in Bishop, before we wrap, it's about 10 minutes before the other. But the person would say to me, you know what, but Bishop, you don't understand. You do not understand how much these things hurt. It hasn't been once, twice. It hasn't been just me he offended. He has offended my mother. He's done it to different people. How then can you say to me, Joseph, let it go? I can't.
I will say to you, Joseph, God is saying to you the same thing. You gotta let it go. And if God asks us to do it, then somehow we have the innate ability to do it. Now, one of the things that is important also in understanding forgiveness, you see, the human relationship is very important. We got to be able to live with each other. But we'll always be offensive to each other in one way or the other. And so it is extremely important for us to understand that we are valuable people. We are complicated people as well. I think one of the things that we don't do is take enough time to understand our humanity. You see? And so we treat, with people as though sometimes they're trees and, they're animals. But we are very complicated. And it's important that we understand. Now, if I get back to your question, and I'm almost sort of have a senior moment here, but I'm can get back to your question. It is just remind me of the question again.
The person is saying, listen, I can't do it past Bishop. He has done this thing over and over, not just to me. But if you ask a million different persons, they would say to you, he has done them wrong. you know what? I'm holding on to this. I can't let it go.
Good. Here's what I will say to that person, Joseph. Listen, you have to release that person. However, one of the things that you may have to do also is adjust your relationship with that person. You see, sometimes we fail to understand that. We have to sometimes adjust relationship so that we can have harmony. You see? And so, for instance, Joseph, let me use you as an example. Okay, so we are good friends, and I share a lot of my personal secrets with you. Okay? But I discovered that you're not keeping my secret.
Right.
Okay? You're sharing it with others. Now, that offends me. I will confront you. Joseph, man, I thought better of you. Yes? Now, but I value you as a person, and I value your friendship. So here's what I will do. I will adjust my relationship. There are certain things, Joseph, if I don't want the public to know, then I just will not tell.
I'm getting the sense that realizing how deep it is, that the transgression and the person is not the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
And very often that's what happens. It's a critical point that you've made in sometime in dealing with our own humanity, our own invincibility, and it only makes us realize how limited we are as human beings. Learning to separate the individual from the event that transpired. That we assumed that because an individual did something, that's who they are. It may have just been just fleeting moment in time where they probably lost their way, lost a judgment, or something you don't know that may have triggered them. That's why they say you never judge a man unless you've walked a man in his shoes, because you're never really quite sure what brought him to that point where he transgressed against you.
Exactly. You see, we often make the person action the person. So I've known you for years to be a great person. You've done something wrong. And I turn around and say you're a wicked and malicious and vicious person, which is not necessarily true. You've done something that is wicked or bad. And they may be extenuating circumstances that drove you into that direction. And I must be able to dichotomize and say, Joseph, this that you did was very bad. But I know that's not you. I know you to be bigger than that. I know, right. You're a better person than that. And that's crucial. That's very, very important.
My final question to you, Bishop, as we wrap, it's 8 minutes on to the hour. Can a person change? Because ultimately, that may be the guiding light that will probably help one to decide. They're saying, yeah, but I want to forgive him. But he can't change. Is it possible that what I did, and it probably may have honestly been who I was 30 years ago, and I did it, but time have passed, and the person saying to you now, you know what? That's not me anymore. I agree, it was me then, but it's not me now. I'm a new man, I'm a changed man. Is it possible?
That's possible. That's possible. It is possible for us as human beings to change. That's one of the reasons why we talk about maturity. We matured, we see things differently, and at different phases in life, our outlook change. We see things differently, and we make adjustments. Even sometimes we even go back and make amends, and say, listen, did that in the past. Now I'm at this place in my life. I realize, that was not the right thing. I'm coming back to say this, and I'm truly sorry for what I did. If we are unforgiving, we always believe people can't change. See, so what we do is take all of what was done in the past and paint them in the present on who they are, as against realizing that people can change. And we must always have our heart open to receive people, the changes in people, and to see it and to recognize it and to appreciate it.
And I guess it would probably be a fitting note as we end to say to a person, that you forgive today because you don't know when and where and how and why in time to come who would need to forgive you, because you were never really quite sure.
Exactly, Joseph. That's a great point, because yes, you may need to have the need to forgive, but always remember that you also need forgiveness. See?
Indeed. Again, thank you, Bishop Baker. I'm really happy that you've stopped and we can share this. And certainly as it goes on, it probably helps us. It would be good that if today we take an introspective look. Because something, one of the challenges to that of forgiving is because we ourselves, Bishop, as we wrap, we don't even quite know ourselves. And so then we think we understand us.
Yeah.
And so then we don't realize that. I wanted you to realize at the end of the day, the man that sits up high, he's still working on us to make us what we ought to be. We all a work in progress, and we need at some point in time, as part of our own humanity and our own development, you might be fighting with a hurt at that spot in your life. And it doesn't matter. Remember, the forgiveness doesn't have to do with the gravity of the sin. Whether or not they committed murder, they lie, they steal. It may just be that somebody say to you, you know what? You offended me with what you said. And sometimes it may not be what you said, but it's how you said it, when you said it, and in the tone that you said it. If the person says you've offended them, don't be too big to say, I am sorry. What I'm not going to say apologize for is to get it past the Baker up and having this conversation this morning. I'm not going to apologize for that. That I'm not sorry about at all. I'm really happy. Bishop, thank you again. Looking forward for us to have conversations along this line at another place and time.
Thank you, Joseph, for having me. Appreciate it.
All the best to you. Grace and peace.
All right.
It's just about 3 minutes on to the hour of 8 o'clock in the morning time. Reminding you at the top of the hour, we joined the BBC for a bulletin of news. Reminding you folks that we are human beings altogether. Sometimes it doesn't matter what is our economic strata or social strata. At the end of the day, we all fall short. We make mistakes. We do things that offend others. What do we do? As an act of preparing for the day when you would offend somebody, I say to you today, you start the process of your own healing by releasing that individual. Release them. I keep saying the individual, believe me, it doesn't make sense you carry that weight, that burden upon your chest. You release them, and you would realize that it's one burden less that you carry as we traverse and navigate our way through this difficult circle of life. 2 minutes on to the hour. We leave with the conversation here for now. We join the BBC at the top of the hour for a bulletin of news. At 8:30, we're going to link up with our sister station Hot 98 for the Sun Clash of the day. At 9 o'clock, I rejoin you on television for To The Point with NDC representative Ron Redhead. Until then, so long, everybody.